Hey, everybody, Dr. LeGrand here, and today we're going to be talking about my secret in eliminating ADHD symptoms naturally. And when it comes to really addressing how to address ADHD symptoms and trying to approach it more naturally, my secret really is about investigating. Whenever I have someone come see me, and are dealing with whether that's focus issues, motivation and drive, anxiety and depression with their ADHD, or dealing with low energy, especially a lot of adults that deal with that, having low energy and not having mental focus throughout the day, my thought process is always going into investigation. And so the best way to kind of share this is giving you a case study of, a middle-aged man. He definitely he was dealing with all the common ADHD symptoms that you experience, such as the lack of motivation, drive, low energy. He was really burnt out at work, as well as dealing with anxiety and depression as well. So usually when I'm looking, the secret to really making natural medicine work and to eliminate your ADHD symptoms is understand why. Why are you having these issues? What is really going on? So for this case, with this patient of mine, it was first looking at, okay, let's first look at possible micronutrient deficiencies that could be out of balance here. And you could see in his case, there were several ones that were out of balance, such as his vitamin B3 levels. Also, his vitamin D3 levels were low, vitamin K1 and also vitamin K2 levels were low. And also vitamin B5 were low. I would even say his vitamin B2 were on the lower side as well. So vitamin B are very important when it comes to actually processing a lot of our different neurotransmitters. And you don't want to ignore that. And it's very common with people with ADHD to have that issue. But in order to identifying if you need it, it's requires investigation to see which ones specifically. So for this person, I added the B complex to help improve his vitamin B2s and his vitamin B3 levels, his vitamin B5, as well as implementing vitamin D3 because his vitamin D3 levels were low, and vitamin K because his vitamin K and K1 were low. And those are also very important for not only for cardiovascular health, but also vitamin D3 has a lot to do with low energy. And this patient of mine was dealing with a significantly low energy. But to take it a step further, it does require more than just looking at micronutrients. That is a good foundation to be able to identify, okay, why am I having these symptoms? And certainly he started to improve with just really peaceful minds, improve with better focus and energy. But there was other things that are also imbalanced that showed up here, such as his choline levels were definitely low. Choline has a lot to do with memory and processing memory. We actually see this actually pretty common with people who actually have Parkinson's disease. We'll see choline levels tend to deplete, but it's also common to see it with people with ADHD, and why people with ADHD actually do have a tendency, have a hard time remembering things. So if you've ever had a hard time remembering things and recalling things and forgetting things, especially when you're driving, if you guys raise your hand or put in the chat, if you've ever been on the road and you're driving, it's like, where am I driving? Where am I going? Let me know in the chat if you guys have ever had that experience. That's very common with ADHD. So there could be a possibility that maybe choline levels could be low. And in this person's situation, his was. So I added something like phosphatidylcholine that did help with the memory situation. And then also some other things that were also out of balance was his coenzyme Q10, which has a lot to do with cardiovascular health, but also for energy as well. It's a very important process for our mitochondria for building a lot of energy, ATP, a lot of different fancy things that happen on in our biochemistry to develop it. But CoQ10 is a really important one for energy as well as for cardiovascular health. And the other one that also came back, also deficient is his glutamine levels. Glutamine levels are an important amino acid for building lots of different neurotransmitters, but also other important hormones too. And so that is something we added as well. Now, taking it even another step further, his other micronutrient test that came back also out of balance was his EPA. So these are also very important to look at omega-3s and omega-6s, and his EPA levels were low. I would even say his DPA and DGA levels were not ideal. So I added a higher ratio of EPA and also DGA levels to consume on a regular basis because those were deficient, and something common that we do see with people with ADHD all the time that tend to have that tendency to have an issue. So the other thing, when we are looking at micronutrients, that covers a lot. You can see from just this patient alone, there was a lot of deficiencies just running a full micronutrient test. And it did make big improvements for his energy, his focus, his capacity, because this is eliminating a lot of the different symptoms because they're deficiencies, and we identified it for him. It's not always the same for each HD person. That's why we run these tests. But taking another step further is looking at neurotransmitters throughout the body, not just the brain. This isn't testing just, it isn't really testing just the brain, it's testing the neurotransmitters throughout the body. And that's very important because 90 to 95%, a lot of our neurotransmitters are actually made in the gut. And in this situation, his PA levels were low, which I'll explain here in a second. PA levels are an amino acid that help build tyrosine, which tyrosine then builds L-DOPA, then to dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. I think a lot of you guys know about dopamine, importance of that with ADHD, but people don't look at the importance of other things that build dopamine, such as like PEA. And so what's important to implement here when we see those levels low is to incorporate something like DL-phenylalanine. Okay. Some other things that were also out of balance in his case were things such as like his glycine levels were low. So we added some glycine powder. Glycine is important for also neurotransmitters. And then on top of that, his histamine levels were low. Now, histamine is really important for as a driver to help build neurotransmitters as well. So we added L-histidine. On top of that, some of the things that when I see like elevation of tyramine levels, elevations of norepinephrine, and also elevation of norepinephrine, which is a breakdown of norepinephrine, as well as there was another one in here. Oh yeah, 5-HIA, which is a breakdown of serotonin. Anytime this is elevated, typically I'll add something like BCQ, boswellia, curcumin, and quercetin. These are great modulators that specifically when there's increased levels, something like this can help with inflammation throughout the body. Typically, sometimes we're not digesting things well and processing things when we see things like elevated tyramine levels. So that's why I added that. The other thing that I also do like adding along with that is L-theanine when I do see imbalances such as norepinephrine being too elevated. L-theanine can help bring that down to help have more of the calming effect, as well as even improving things such as like 5-HIAA, which is a breakdown of serotonin. So these are things that are really important to understand. Just because you might think you have a low dopamine situation, which in this person's case, it wasn't. But there's certainly other different imbalances in the neurotransmitters, but we need to know what specifically it is. And that is the secret to really eliminating HD symptoms naturally by first investigating. Now, taking it a step further, it isn't just looking at neurotransmitters, you guys. There's several things depending on your medical history. And this is what I look at when I'm deciding to work with someone is decide, okay, what is your medical history? What are the other health problems that you're dealing with that actually can not only be contributing to your HD symptoms, but just your overall health that impacting your life on a daily basis. So remember, he was dealing with low energy. Now he had some improvement because we improved some of the micronutrient tests, but I also wanted to investigate the possibility of some cortisol imbalances. And sure enough, he had low levels in the morning. And so adding something like Drenamine, because the reason I added Drenamine is because he did also, I didn't mention this before, he had high blood pressure. And you got to be careful with this because usually when you're doing adrenal support stuff, it can spike blood pressure. And so Drenamine is a good, more, it's not very increased amount of adrenal support, but just enough to help with people with high blood pressure, as well as bring the cortisol levels up just enough to improving the energy. The other part of here too is actually running all its hormones, and DHEA were significantly low. That is a precursor to testosterone and estradiol. So more of a preventative factor, added DHEA to help improve in those levels. And then of course, on top of that, supplements are great. But it isn't the be all answer. My approach is always going to be, supplements are great to use initially, but you want to be able to use food as your medicine, as well as using lifestyle as your medicine to use that as a long-term solution for your ADHD treatment and to eliminating the ADHD symptoms so that you have consistency of not having these symptoms creeping back, because you need to have consistency in the ways that you eat in your lifestyle. So for this patient, typically, I'll run other different tests to look at their metabolism rate, their digestive panels and stuff like that. And for him, a big part of it was because of having high blood pressure as well as high cholesterol that he also did have. Typically these metabolism types have a hard time breaking down foods that are harder to break down, things as like oily, greasy fried foods, high fat dairy products, and mostly a lot of your more dense meats. And so usually those are going to be the worst foods as well as high sugar processed foods, starches, alcohol, and beer and wine. So I usually these types usually to cut back on those and improve more increase in seasonal vegetables, healthy starches, as well as leaner proteins. And if we're doing beef, more grass-fed beef because it's going to be easier to break down because it doesn't have as much fat content in it. And the fat that you want to focus on are going to be easier foods to break down with these metabolism types. And so that's going to be like raw nuts, nut butters, avocados, fish oil. Those are going to be easier for these metabolism types that already have high blood pressure, high cholesterol. That just means what I call a slow oxidizer. Someone who just burns energy at a slower pace are going to need to focus on these types of foods, as well as when it comes to fruits, more fruits within season. And then the ratios is going to be very high in vegetables, 60%. And then starches, healthy starch is going to be 30%. And then proteins and fats is going to be about 10% on each plate. So that is another thing that, was really important with the treatment is the food process. So after implementing all these things over time, not only was able to kind of get to use the supplements to help bring up his energy, have better focus, but he was able to actually titrate off of it and really rely on lifestyle change and his foods. And he was able to have significant improvement in all the areas that he was suffering with. He wasn't having issues at work. He had more energy and was able to improve in that. So, I mean, if you are somebody that, would like to find out really this information for yourself, for your own ADHD, if you've really been struggling trying to identify the root cause of your problem, of how to eliminate your ADHD symptoms more naturally, well, like I said, it does require further investigation. And so what I do offer people is that opportunity to book a consultation with me where we could sit down where I can look at your medical history and determine what is going to be the best type of testing to implement and invest and to also come up with an action plan that's going to help you achieve that optimal focused mind and having that optimal ADHD health that you're seeking for. So, I mean, most people don't realize, but it does, like my journey, like through this process, going to medical school and continuing education, have spent well over, $500,000 to be able to figure this out. But I've already done that for you. You don't need to go to medical school and figure this out on your own. You don't need to invest in that kind of money to figure that out. And most people don't realize that people who don't treat their ADHD, they've seen this across the board in research, they will waste over $1 million in their lifetime if they don't treat their ADHD correctly, effectively, because of the lost jobs, poor decision making and life choices because they don't treat their ADHD correctly. And I certainly don't want that to be one of you. And so what I'm offering is just basically booking a consultation with me. It's a 45-minute session. It's $750 value, along with the focused mindset questionnaire assessment that I have you fill out that's very in-depth and thorough. That helps me determine what lab testing is going to be the best to implement for you. And that's $197 value. Also, if you do purchase today, I do give you access to our HD health course. That's a $297 value. So for over $1,000 value, you get everything for just $297. So all you got to do is just click on the link in the description below. Once you click on that link, it will take you to this page to purchase. Once you purchase, you will pick a date and time. And then once you pick your date and time, you'll fill out your information, and then it'll take you to this landing page. Now, this is really important. People forget this. When you purchase, after you filled out everything, you should get a confirmation email for your appointment of the date and time that you picked, as well as another email giving access to our client portal, which is Practice Better. This is where you're going to fill out the client questionnaire, the in-depth questionnaire, as well as if you have any past labs in the past year with your doctor, just standard labs, definitely upload those so I can look over those if we need to. It isn't a requirement, but if you do have them, then it's nice to have. And then, make sure to block out 45 minutes to 60 minutes. Sometimes we'll go an hour if we need to, if you have further questions. Make sure to show up early. But that's all you got to do. So if you really want to take action and serious about really tackling your ADHD, then click on the link in the description below where I can help you determine what lab testing is going to be best and also put an action plan for you for your ADHD so you can finally have that optimal focused mind that you're seeking for. Thank you guys so much for attending. Until next time, I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Thanks. Bye.